Okay, let's do an example of logistic regression in JASP. And so I'm going to have the PowerPoint up as well as JASP, and we want our ELS data file. All right, so our working example here is going to be using the educational longitudinal study of 2002. We wish to explore if ninth grade class preparation, teacher-rated writing ability, and socioeconomic quartile predict post-secondary enrollment. And so just a little bit of background information here. So with the socioeconomic quartile, every student was assigned a value of 1, 2, 3, or 4, where 1 is the lowest quartile for SES, and 4 is the highest SES level. The NCES calculated this SES variable taking into account family income, parent education, a few other variables, I believe parent occupation, in calculating what SES quartile the student belonged in ninth grade. Okay, so let's work on going through setting up our logistic regression. So we're going to go to regression, logistic regression, and our post-secondary enrollment is down here at the bottom. It's the F2 EVR ATT, so ever attend. All right, our covariates, so our continuous independent variables, that will be student preparation and teacher-rated writing ability. And SES quartile will be our factor. And we want to go under statistics. And let's check factor descriptives, odds ratios. Let's do multicollinearity diagnostics, confusion matrix, sensitivity, specificity. And let's also do our case-wise diagnostics, but let's change to Cook's distance greater than 1. Okay. All right, so let's start with our assumptions, and I'm going to make this just a wee tad bigger. Okay, so let's start here with our multicollinearity. All right, remember we want tolerance greater than 0.2 and the variance inflation factor less than 10, so we do not have any multicollinearity here, so that has not been violated. And we can also look at our case-wise diagnostics here. If we had cases where the residual had a Cook's distance greater than 1, they would show up in this box, but we notice we don't have any, so we can assume by this that we do not have any significant outliers. All right, let's take a look up here at our model summary. All right, and looking at the AIC and BIC, we see that the ASC and BIC are both much smaller for our alternative model that has predictors compared to our null model that does not have predictors. We can take a look at the p-value for our chi-square, which is less than 0.001, which says at least one of these independent variables significantly predicts post-secondary enrollment. And we can look at our pseudo R-squareds here, and we've got McFadden at 17.7% and Jura at 18.7%. All right, let's go now to our coefficients table, and again, we've got walled tests for each independent variable. And let's start with our 2 continuous independent variables, so student preparation and teacher-rated writing ability. And we see we've got an odds ratio of 1.181 for student preparation and an odds ratio of 2 for writing ability. And since these are both greater than 1, what this is saying is that as ninth grade student preparation and teacher-rated writing ability increase, the likelihood of post-secondary enrollment increases. All right, and then let's look at our SES quartile. And so SES quartile in the data is numbered 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so the 2, 3, and 4 are in comparison to 1, okay? And so we see that, that likelihood of post-secondary enrollment, that students in quartile 2 have 1.69 greater odds of enrolling post-secondary compared to students in the first quartile. And then we notice that the odds ratios keep increasing. And so by the time you get to that highest quartile of SES, those students have an 8.41 higher odds of enrolling post-secondary compared to students in the first quartile. All right, let's take a look at our plots. So let's go over to plots, and we want to check conditional estimates and show data points. All right, and we see somewhat linearly or somewhat increasing here between student preparation and the probability of post-secondary enrollment. We see a stronger relationship with teacher-rated writing ability. But let's take a look here at SES. So again, these bars represent 95% confidence interval. None of them overlap. And so we're just really seeing that, you know, for each incremental increase in SES quartile, that the likelihood of enrolling in post-secondary just really increases. And so we've got a huge difference between this first quartile and the highest quartile. All right, let's take a look at our performance diagnostics. All right, so we've got 631 true negatives, 6,983 true positives. The model correctly predicted 79% of the cases. Our sensitivity is 94.2%, and our specificity is 28.4%. And so 94% accuracy with true positives and 28.4% accuracy with true negatives. All right, how do we write this up in APA format? All right, logistic regression was performed to ascertain the relationship of socioeconomic status, 9th grade class preparation, and teacher-rated writing ability on the likelihood of enrolling in a post-secondary institution. The logistic regression model was statistically significant, and again, we report the chi-square with the degrees of freedom, 9,630, and just since we have JASP open, let's go back up to our table, and we see that our alternative model has 9,630 degrees of freedom. We report the chi-square value, 1840.158, and we report the p-value of less than 0.001. The model explained 18.7%, and I noted yours R-squared. I could have also reported McFadden's pseudo R-squared of 17.7% of the variance in post-secondary enrollment, and correctly classified 79% of cases. Sensitivity was 94% and specificity was 28.4%. All three predictor variables were significant. Increasing 9th grade class preparation and writing ability were associated with an increased likelihood of post-secondary enrollment. Compared to students in the lowest SES quartile, students in the second quartile had 1.69 times higher odds of enrolling. Students in the third quartile had 2.65 times higher odds of enrolling. And students in the highest quartile had 8.41 times higher odds of enrolling. All right, I think at this point you should be ready for the homework.